Thank you for all of you who are watching tonight. We also want to thank all veterans, our first responders, our law enforcement agencies, and everyone who has helped during the COVID-19. And my heart goes out to those of you who have lost loved ones during this pandemic. May God bless you all. Also, I want to thank Grassroots for America for sponsoring this event. We are grateful to you for supporting us.
What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people.
Welcome to another broadcast of Seminole County Debate. I just want to disclose that today we were scheduled to have Mr. Scott Playton, who's currently the Florida House District 29's congressperson, and his opponent, Luther Dow. They both declined to come on the show or to come on the debate. And of course, as you know, the objective is for us to educate you, the voter. My name is Sandra Dorsey. I'm with Seminole County Debates, and it's your voice, your choice, your vote. It is important that we know moving into the primary election on August 18, who is going to be representing us. Mr. Playton has been in office for quite some time. He represents us currently and has been in office since November 2014. That's quite some time to hold office. You know, I personally believe in term limits, but I'm not the only voice that matters in this country. So, we have a diverse group of people with, various views on the topic. So I again wanted to provide you, the voter, education on who these candidates are. So as I mentioned, Mr. Playton has been a member of Florida House Representatives since 2014, and he was preceded by Mike Cleland. So for me, I have been voting in this county for the last, 7 years. And to be honest, I haven't really given much thought about this particular seat. And, but that said, it means that I haven't been educated enough, which is why I was interested in putting these events together so that we could learn and we could grow and be more empowered to make the decision as to who represents us moving forward. So that said, I did a bit of research and I wanted to see how Mr. Playton was representing us. He is someone who is from New York, but he now lives in Florida and represents District 29. I looked up his voting record, and it seems that he actually has been quite active in many areas. And of course, I'm supposed to be joined by my co-moderator, Alexandra Levine, and I'm waiting to see if she's able to log on, and we will start as soon as we can confirm. But the person who is challenging the incumbent is Mr. Luther Dow. I don't know much about Mr. Dow. I know I invited him to come on this debate, and both of them declined. And I said, well, it's hard for me to make an informed decision without having a conversation with the person. I briefly spoke to him, and he didn't feel that these debates were important enough to spend the time here with the voters. So I'm going to do it for them. I'm going to discuss exactly what their platforms are and exactly how we can, find the best candidate to represent Seminole County. And, as we go through each one, we can go ahead and, make a decision and see exactly what is required. And so if you're just joining us, we just had the first debate with for congressional District 7 with Mr. Yukon Zhao, and Richard Goebel, and it was fascinating to see this on screen. I had this idea, and then of course it became a reality because we do believe in an informed decision is the best decision that you can make, rather than just blindly choosing down a ballot. So we're just being joined now by Alexandra. Welcome, Alexandra. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Okay, so let Alexandra get settled in. And, as soon as she lets us know that she's okay, I'll let her introduce herself. And so again, we just had this is the second debate, and this is for this is State Senate District, Florida House, District 29. And we are going to be discussing Mr. Scott Plaikin and his opponent, his challenger, who is Luther Dow. Alexandra, can you hear me? And so she can't hear us yet. So I'll keep talking. And when I look at Mr. Dow, and I want to say to those of you just joining us, I want to thank all the first responders, the law enforcement, and everyone that helped during the COVID-19 and beyond. Thank you to our candidates for coming out, in the previous segment. And we're excited to share with you, the American people, for plans for your district. And I also want to say thank you to Grassroots for America for sponsoring this event. I want to say to everyone in Seminole County who believes in this effort that I have committed to during this election cycle to continue to fight. This requires a fight. Everyone is contributing in their own way, and I have chosen to contribute in this way through Seminole County debates, and hopefully you can benefit from this as well. So Alexandra, I see, is still trying to log on. Can you give me a thumb up if you can hear me?
Yes, I can finally hear you.
Oh, and I can hear you. How fabulous. All right. So Alexandra, you want to say some opening statements and a little bit about who you are and why you're here?
Hi. Sorry for the delay. My name is Alexandra Levine. I was born and raised in Sarasota, Florida. I'm currently the founder of Potomac Sports and Entertainment Network, also YourNewIdiot.com, as also the former state leader for Florida, DC, Maryland, and Virginia for the America First Coalition. And I just want to say again, thank you to our first responders, our firefighters, our law enforcement. Thank you to everyone that has helped us during this COVID-19 situation and beyond.
Yes, these are unprecedented times. And I just also want to say that these debates are being streamed live, and they will be hosted until after the general election on Sendor TV, which is, kindly, I'm the founder and CEO of Sendor TV, as you know, and they will all be archived so that you can continue to watch these and get to know and get to participate in the conversation and share with your friends. Please feel free to do so, as I will be sharing this on all the social media platforms and a recorded format. So I am Sandra Dorsey, and I host a show on Sendor TV called Frankly Speaking with Sandra D. And I'm curious why I'm here. I'm curious because like you, the voters, I don't know many of these candidates in Seminole County. I voted for them down the ballot, for a particular party. And I didn't really do much investigation, but this is a time that requires that we get to know who these people are. And Alexandra, I would say, has been more involved with politics than I have. And Alexandra, you've been passionate about politics for some time. You were even part of another type of process. I think I want to say something you were involved in the Jexit movement.
Jexit movement, Jexit Inc. actually, I'm the chair of the board, is actually a 501c4 educational advocacy organization. What we specialize in is combating anti-Semitism, the persecution of Christians, other orientations, other minorities. Actually, because of our 501c4, we cannot endorse candidates. But we will work with the biggest, when we say candidate, the biggest supporter of Israel, which is President Donald J. Trump, who is by far the only president that supports Israel more so, even more so than Ronald Reagan. And we are really good friends with Laura Loomer, who she's running for Congress in District 21. She's Jewish. And of course, we love her support, and she does support the Jexit movement wholeheartedly.
Thank you. It's interesting because, as I look at, and so there are two candidates that we'll be discussing, the current incumbent, which is Scott Playton, and his challenger, Luther Dow. And, when in 2008, I voted for Obama, I did, and I didn't know anything about him. And I said, I will never do that again. I will investigate, I will research, I will know who I am voting for. Not just a soundbite, but actually the records and these, the platform that the person is representing, which is partly what inspired these debates. So we're going to talk about Mr. Playton. Well, of course, the challenger won't have much record, but we can talk about why, he couldn't be here to speak directly to the people. And so we'll start with Scott Playton. And Alexandra, what have you found?
I'm taking a look at the Florida bills right now, and one of the biggest ones, the first one was the direct care workers, and that was the HB 607 SB 1776. It says medical professionals such as nurses are often trained to do far more procedures than is allowed by regulations or law. This bill would expand the scope of practice for advanced practice registered nurses to perform a range of procedures they're trained and certified to deliver without physician supervision, allowing nurses to provide more care to patients. The HB 607 was passed by both legislation chambers and signed into law by the governor. So, of course, this one is very important for our nurses, for our doctors, for our physicians. As you know, right now, one of the biggest things with COVID-19 is that we didn't have enough of the ventilators. There wasn't enough of the supplies. And as we know, the President of the United States, he actually was in contact hand in hand with our great Governor Ron DeSantis to make sure that we have the right resources to help people that had COVID-19, to make sure that COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 patients weren't mixed together, because that's what was happening in New York City.
Well, absolutely.
In the Atlantic states. So what this does is it allows more resources to happen for nurses and for doctors. So if God forbid there is another catastrophic pandemic again, we are more prepared than ever before.
Yeah, well, that's great. It's interesting that you mentioned New York City, and I'm so grateful that I have a mind that requires me to go behind the scenes and find out the information. But there are many people who don't know how or where to find this information, and that's part of why we're doing this forum today. Because as you know, with COVID-19, you have two versions of the truth, and I'm not saying that what is being portrayed in the mainstream media is not truthful. But what I'd like to say and emphasize is it is not the version that I subscribe to. And I prefer to go deeper into just a one line or just a one sentence soundbite. Because I know myself, I've lost someone during and the person did not die from COVID. And I don't believe that, most of the people that died during this time passed on because of COVID. They passed on from complications, but exactly what is being put on their death certificate. And this has nothing to do with tonight. We can talk about that on another forum. But it is important that we focus on the care workers, the people who are putting their lives at stakes, and they have to go home to their families and, protect themselves and quarantine themselves from their families during this time. So it's very important that we know how our politicians are going to support these people moving forward, because, they have become part of where we used to think that police officers were more at risk. Now it's the healthcare workers as well. And so one of the things, another bill that I saw it's the, let's see here. There's so many of them. And, I have to say that he's been in office for, over 10 years. So I would think that he's voted on quite a few. And what I would like to happen, though, is Mr. Dow, his opponent, how does he feel about any of this? yeah, sometimes we vote against someone versus voting for someone. So is Luther Dow going to be that vote, the person that you vote against Placken? Because we don't know, I don't know much about Luther Dow. I don't know how he feels about any of the issues. So if I did cast a vote for him, it would be voting against Mr. Placken, who I don't even know either. So what is your voting pattern? Do you vote is your vote a protest vote, or are you passionate like me? Like right now, I have many things that I'm passionate about that are going through that are being presented in the headlines. So I make sure that the person who is being voted for represents me in the best possible way. Alexandra, so which other bill? I see so many. It's so hard to choose from. I see. Go ahead. What?
I don't know. I agree with you. Yeah, there's a lot. I'm just trying to think like what's something that's relevant to today society.
So we have. I'll read some of the headlines, and we can go to. We have scholarship programs. I'm amazed because as a voter, who knew? I mean, there's so much that's being voted for in the Capitol, but we, the voters, haven't a clue. So we have here that. What he has given attention to. There's a scholarship program which says last year supported legislation that created the Family Empowerment Scholarship Program designed to help children and their parents expand their educational options. That is an important option. That is an important bill because as we are facing times of COVID and parents now are in dire straits because no one knows what happens in September. I mean, are they going back to school? So are these parents going to be compensated for the times that they're spending away from work to care, at home to homeschool their children? Because not everybody can afford a tutor. Is the state government going to subsidize the schools to provide at-home tutors? Kids are now having to have computers at home because they're doing, digital curriculums. So all these have to be discussed. We have another one that's, on another topic, which is. Go ahead.
This isn't in Florida, but it's still relevant. I'm in Maryland right now, and they just passed a bill with in Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and Howard County. They will be doing virtual school until January 28th of next year. So then what happens from now to January 28th of next year? What happens to the suburban women? What happens to those single mothers that have to go to work and they cannot afford a nanny, or maybe they don't have a parent or a grandparent to help take care of their child? So what do they do? And this is actually resonating amongst Democrats because the Democratic voter knows that the Republicans support the reopening of schools. Dr. Rand Paul actually addressed it in his first testimony against Dr. Fauci. And he said to Dr. Fauci, "You're not the be-all, end-all, sir. Students need to go back to school. They need to interact. They need to build up their immune system."
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is a really big issue that a lot of Republicans, in my opinion, really need to pounce on to kind of change the narrative. Because one of the main things that we say, especially in Baltimore County, for voters that have lived with an incumbent Democratic congressman for years, what has your Democratic congressman done for you? And they say absolutely nothing. They said, that's right. They said the schools are closed. The Democrats want to keep the schools closed. The Republicans want to reopen the schools. And it actually changes the mind of the voter a little bit because most people in America, they want to go to work. They want their child to interact with people, and you're missing so much when a child does not go to school. They're not getting the proper education that they need when they go to school, and it's actually killing the profession of the teacher as well.
Absolutely, and we don't look at teachers. We should put them in a category of first responders because now there are so many school shootings, in schools that these teachers are the protector of the children. They're the ones that stand between a child surviving such an event that is traumatic and not surviving. But I was looking at a voting record on a website called justfactsvotesmart.org, and it tracks the voting record of Scott Placken. And the first one that is that comes up is called the authorization of the safe sale of fireworks for New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and Independence Day Well, I like the fact that he's supporting those type of activities because I again in any for me it's the same for guns, right? So guns don't kill, I don't believe. I grew up with guns in my household and I was never inspired to pick one up and use it myself because I was given boundaries as that's not for you. So it's the same with fireworks. I believe if children are provided with the information and the proper use of those specific, and also just like any tool, like you can have a kitchen object, you know, a kitchen gadget, behave in a way that's not that it is detrimental to someone. You can have a firework or a gun, you know, not used properly. So what I'm trying to say is the fact that we're trying to prevent the sale of certain things because they think they can harm people. Well, it's not the actual object that harms, it's the person behind the object that it's harming. So he did vote yes for that. So he wants to continue to he wants to the sale of fireworks to continue. Another one is let's see.
Our Second Amendment is being, held against us, especially in the state of Virginia, where I am currently.
Absolutely. Do you have the website pulled up, Alexandra, that I'm referring to? It's justfactsvotesmart.org. I encourage the audience to go and look that up. That's where you can look at it's just facts with an S votesmart.org, and you put in Mr. Plaken's name and you can look at his voting record. So another one, I see that he voted yes to require government agencies use of E-Verify immigration check for employment. Alexandra, I know you mentioned you've had.
For some reason, it's not pulling up on my computer. I'm so sorry. I am using a different computer.
No, it's fine. It's just JUST facts facts.votesmart.org /candidate key votes /candidate /key votes /107739 /Scott Plaken Plakon. This is really fun. I feel like an investigative journalist. This is what transparency looks like. And so I am not discussing anything about Mr. Plaken that is not
Spell his last name for the audience.
Plakon. So of course my intention here is not to embarrass, but to just discuss the facts, as the website is called, Just the Facts. So, it talks about it describes his voting records, and so I scroll down and I see that he has also voted yes for the E-Verify immigration. This was in March of 11th, 2020. He also voted yes for a men's Medicaid program for individuals with disability. That's a great thing. And he voted yes for requiring parental consent for minors prior to abortion. That's a great thing. And
he also yes for the use of medical marijuana.
That's interesting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
And you can look my record. I voted yes.
I voted yes too, but then you hear these conservative leaders, you don't expect that. But John Boehner, he went on to join a board of a marijuana company. So what can I say?
There's a difference between the medical side and then using it recreational.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm on the Hill. Before COVID, I was on the Hill 3-4 days a week. So I speak with a lot of congressmen, a lot of senators that have states that have passed recreational marijuana, like for example, the state of Colorado. The senator now he's running for his life now, Cory Gardner. He's tied right now with the Democrat opponent going up against him. But they said when the state of Colorado went recreational marijuana, it really changed the state. It really changed the brainwaves of the young people. They weren't focused at school. They were not focused at work. And a lot of people abused it. And that's kind of the issue that we're having in the state of California, the state of Oregon, the state of Washington, the state of Massachusetts. And these are all liberal states, by the way. Colorado is more liberal state. But more of these liberal states that are passing recreational marijuana to be legalized, it's actually affecting their state. It's affecting the employment. It's affecting our young people. And that's something that, people really need to think about I know for a fact they will be pushing one day for Florida to vote yes or no on recreational marijuana. So that's something that we all need to think about. In the state of Florida, we really need to look at the stats of the state of California, the state of Colorado, the state of Massachusetts. Is this something that we as the state of Florida really want? And unfortunately, we have a Democrat as our agricultural commissioner, Nikki Fried, who's a big proponent of marijuana, specifically recreational marijuana.
Absolutely.
It's something that we really need to think about, down the road.
And that's a big lobbyist movement right now. And they are trying to influence the governor. I mean, these special interest groups they have their tentacles everywhere in Florida. So when you hear Alexandra saying that, these people are pushing hard, they're not just pushing hard with just, a bumper sticker on their car. They are throwing money at the issue. They're buying out people, buying out politicians, and saying, we will donate to your campaign if you vote this way. And that's how they hijack these politicians. So even if they're conservative and you hear them say, I don't support this, but then you find out that they voted a certain way. And I'm not, by all means, not saying that this is the case for Mr. Playkin. I'm just saying generally, that's how special interests influence our politics. Now, what we're seeing is that these bodies, the governmental bodies, they don't answer to the people anymore. They answer to special interest groups. And that's what one of the ads that Donald Trump played, of the most recent ads, is government is supposed to serve the people. But now they are serving special interests in the establishment. And that's what we have to abolish. We need politicians, and not even, let's just remove the word politician from the equation. We need individuals who will serve to represent the district, the county, the city, not those people who have donated necessarily with a special agenda. And that's what we're seeing. We see that on other sides. And, I'm not going to call out the Democratic Party because that would seem unfair because, of course, I vote conservative. So this is not a show to call out the Democrats. This debate that was supposed to happen today was to highlight the platform for conservatives, we have the general election to take out these Democrats. But right now is to identify which individual is more reflective and more identifies more so with a conservative platform, because we are we're going into the primary on August 18th. So, and I still don't know. So let's keep going, Alexandra, because now I'm getting, I'm going on a rant. So we don't want that. We want to educate.
It's very crucial also what Republican we vote in, because there is a difference between a rhino, a never Trumper, a snowflaker, and someone who really supports the president and will stand by him and push his agenda forward.
Absolutely.
Because I just worked on, I do a lot of campaigns in the Maryland area, and I just, dealt with somebody who was not establishment versus establishment. And of course, they pushed the establishment guy through. And that is someone that the president will never endorse and never.
Absolutely.
Want that.
It's happening all over Florida.
Stand by him. Again, like I said in the first hour, you must stand by the people that stand up for us. If you love your country, you must work with somebody who loves your country, which is President Donald J. Trump.
Absolutely.
For the right reasons, then do not run at all.
Absolutely. Can I just say amen? And so that was brilliantly said. And we were going to put that sound by. We're going to play that over and over again. We're going to, make sure that people hear it, because that's beautiful. It's so eloquent because you could feel the passion. And I must say that I've met a lot of these politicians. And I'm not impressed because, we are in a fight. And so there's a lot at stake. So I came from a political family. I'm from Haiti originally, and Haiti is one of the leaders in the region as far as, a country that stands for liberty. But then they've sold out. And so, which is why my adopted land of United States of America, it's all I've got at this point. And so I've lived a few different places all over the world, but the United States exemplifies liberty, freedom. And we want to know that these candidates represent that. And when you say liberty and freedom for all, not just for few, Because we've seen and heard things where some people are subject to, in law and order, but some people get away with so much. But this is not the conversation. Alexandra, I'm scrolling down and I'm looking at some of the bills that he has sponsored. Can do you see where I am? If you scroll down a little bit?
I'm on page 2 of 6.
Okay, so there was on page 1, you have one. This is on March still. He sponsored. He co-sponsored adding Ocoee riots to school curriculum. I'm not sure I know anything about that, but it's interesting because it's interesting as they are canceling culture, they're adding certain riots to curriculums, and they're tearing down. People are tearing down statues, and so it's interesting what's being added to history books at this time. Do you know anything about this?
I can touch on this issue a little bit. Again, with the school curriculum, because I have people in my family that are teachers, we must teach the history as it was written, as it was done in that time period. When you put your political bias into the classroom, it changes everything.
Sure.
And the kids, you're the teacher. The students are going to listen to what the teacher has to say. They don't want to buck the teacher. But when a teacher says that the Holocaust did not exist, and there are museums saying and showing real-life images of the Holocaust, when there are Holocaust survivors still out there that are still telling their stories, it's a real detriment, and it's hurting our education and it's hurting our youth. When you have Congressman Ocasio-Cortez that compares a detention center to a concentration camp, it is comparing apples and oranges. You cannot compare Nazi Germany, where Jews were legal citizens of their country and they were stripped of their rights. They wore a name, and within hours later, they wore a number. That is not what happens when you go to a detention center. Detention centers are illegals that are crossing over here illegally. They're already breaking the law, and they have to be detained by ICE, which are people that support us, the American people, making sure that illegal immigrants don't hurt the Americans. They are detained. They still have their name. They still keep their belongings. They still have their hair on their head. That's not what happened in Nazi Germany. And that's the history that needs to be taught. You go to a Holocaust survivor, you ask them to show them the tattoo number on their arm because it is still there. They will be buried with that. That is ingrained with them because in Judaism, it is actually against Judaism to desecrate the body, to tattoo. And the Nazis did that on purpose, knowing it.
Well, absolutely.
The Holocaust Museum. It's right here in Washington, D.C. It has real-life graphic footage of what happened there. That needs to be taught and that needs to be shown. And when we have teachers and superintendents that don't teach that and put out Louis Farrakhan on the YouTube, who's a known anti-Semite, that's where the history and that's where the education gets lost.
Well, I am one who's all about freedom of speech, and it pains me when I hear that one of my favorites, or someone I don't even know, is being banned, whether it be left, right, up, down, sideways, wherever you stand. I believe everybody has the divine birthright to speak their mind. I don't have to agree with what they say. That's why I can't understand why people react so strongly to certain politicians and for instance, Donald Trump, and how this country has gone, has gone pretty much nuclear, because you don't have to agree. It's a reflection of what the person thinks and how the person feels, and nothing to do with you. And, so that said, I'm also going through some of the, and I have to say that, this is not a crucifixion of Mr. Playkin. We are going to get to Mr. Dow in a few minutes. But of course, Mr. Playkin has a little bit more experience, so there's a lot more to discuss. And Alexandra, what stands out to you when you're looking at these records?
He votes yes on a lot of, issues that hone into Republicans, a lot of issues that, the president supports. He voted for repealing and replacing Obamacare, which is something that needs to be repealed and replaced.
Absolutely. And I do see here
our earlier segment, the president got rid of the individual mandate, which is very important. I'm also in the health insurance industry. So when I call people, they said, "Oh my God, I hope you're not pitching us Obamacare because it's terrible." I said, "Oh God, no, I would never," because it is terrible. And the president called it the Unaffordable Care Act, and it's true, it is unaffordable.
Yes, indeed. And it's sad, he is definitely a capitalist who is, he's for lower taxes. I see him, he's establishing tax credit for certain companies. And I love that because what it is, it's stimulating the economy. Well, God knows Seminole County is going to need it after this COVID crisis. And, and of course, I'm just again doing a very superficial dive into his voting records. I'm sure there's more there. So I encourage you, the voters, to do your own investigation. This is not an endorsement of him. I'm just going through what I see. And one of the things I see here, and I can't imagine, in 2016, he co-sponsored a bill for requiring for disposal of fetal tissues. That is, I can't imagine. It says here that it says the highlight classifies a failure to dispose of fetal remains in a sanitary manner at a first degree misdemeanor. So what it seems like is that people were not really doing a good job, or the healthcare providers or practitioners were not doing a good job at disposing of babies after they're born, and the idea that these people are discarding them in just trash bags. There has to be a more humane way of doing that. So I'm glad that he's able to do this. And of course, this is my first time on live on camera going through these. And he said,
he's he's pro-life. He doesn't believe in abortion, and especially does not believe in late-term abortion. That's something that he's advocated against. And I'll be honest with you, most Americans, unless you're very, very liberal, far left, like in New York City, most of them do not believe in late-term abortion. I mean, that is murder.
That's interesting. So so he seems to, but the final judgment is one thing, but who is the person? Who is Scott Playton? I don't know him. I mean, I understand there was a debate in 2000. It's nothing like when you see the person with the individual in person. The thing that wins me over with Donald Trump is because his charisma and how he's authentic, because he walks his walk. He talks and he walks the walk, right? So for me, it's great to see something on paper. A lot of people have good resumes, but do they bring the personality? Because when you are in a leadership position, you have to be representing in a way that shows that the opposition, i.e. the Democrats, that you're in it to win, and you believe in what you're doing. And that's because you represent the people and you've listened to the people, and you make sure that every action is in alignment with what the voters put you in office for. Okay. So it's
and also it has, you can vote for every bill in the sun, but what do you do after you vote?
Right.
Bill,
right. Right. And
so you can talk the talk. There's a lot of politicians out there that just love seeing their face on the camera. They love going on Fox News. They love going on CNN. They love going on MSNBC. Okay, you're on the camera, but again, what are you doing for the American people?
Right.
That's the biggest thing. And that's what the president watches when he sees all these politicians go on camera. Who's going to have his back at the end of the day? Who's going to implement everything that he signs? Who's going to back him and support him? That's what's most important.
And
kind of missing right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
President Trump really opened up the door so that you don't have to be a politician to constantly run for something. I have a lot of friends that, they're just plumbers or they're oil welders, and they woke up and they're like, you know what? The president has given me the momentum to run. Because I feel like I have a voice too, and I feel like people like me, their voices have not been heard. And the president really taps into that. So we call him the forgotten man and the forgotten woman. And those people, that group of people is more so coming out and they're running because they are the backbone of our nation.
Absolutely.
We have to support them. And I thank President Trump so much for saying that we are not taking care of our blue collar workers and we need to bring our jobs back.
Right.
I thank him for that. And I think the people that are running that have said, you know what, the president has given me a voice. Everybody has a voice in this country now. It's just, you need to, again, vote what we say, vote your principles, vote what you grew up in. Don't vote against your will. And a lot of these politicians, they vote against their will. And that's the problem.
Absolutely. How steady is he on these bills? I mean, I feel that a conservative in Seminole County is probably safe. But if there was a lot more on the line, if this was, if your back was against the wall, how would you do in a crisis? This is the kind of leadership that we need. We need someone who's really going to, when all hell breaks loose, that you say, I'm sticking to my guns and I'm not wavering.
State elections are really important. People don't think they are, but they really, really, really are. They work with our governor, they work with our state. So these are really, really important. They're the ones that control if we reopen a county in Florida or not. I mean, I had that issue in Maryland. I got stuck in Maryland because the governor of Maryland allowed the city councilmen and the city committeemen and the mayors of the cities to decide when, for example, I'm in Montgomery County, when Montgomery County could open. Montgomery County opens the latest.
My hometown.
I was a Democrat, and he treated Montgomery County like it was worse than New York City and Italy. And that's the problem. So if we have proper leadership in there, we can get a lot more things done.
Absolutely. So, let's sort of ask the voters to keep in mind, if they run into Mr. Playkin, what kind of questions should these voters ask Mr. Playkin to really, determine, to e-verify him, to see if it's the right candidate for this? And then we can switch over to Luther Dow and see if we can find anything on him, because I haven't been able to find anything on his, Google this man. And he said to me, well, I've not found anything on you. And I said, I'm all over the internet, but I've not found anything on Mr. Luther Dow, LUTHER DOWE.
And that's for the voters.
Yeah. And so when you run into these candidates, first of all, with this whole movement of defunding the police, that's a first question. Of course, we know that these conservative leaders would not, but if you had a mob at your house, would you cave? Would you cave? If you had a mob go to a citizen's house who practiced their Second Amendment, would you cave to the mayor who happened to be a Demo or liberal who was padding their resume? Would you cave? Would you fault someone for defending his family and his grounds? Would you cave? And if you were the lone man standing on the Second Amendment, would you cave? Because are you comfortable now because you're surrounded by other conservatives, or are you ready to die for what you believe? Like many, many law enforcement have. Do you stand by these people? Would you give up everything for keeping Seminole County safe? That's the question. Or are you more interested in keeping your career safe? That's the question that you need to ask these politicians. And so, I think that if one is concerned about their career, they should stay in the private sector. That's the place where you get to dictate. But when you're an elected official, you don't get to choose. You answer to the people. You have to listen to the people who voted you in, and where it falls, because like me, I get busy. I don't have time. I vote, I see who wins, and I move on. But no, this is not the time for us to move on. This is the time for us to pay attention, to really see what the dynamics are in all over, not just this county, all over the country, because what can happen, and we're seeing it in Texas, right, Alexandra? We're seeing that a lot of counties in states are, people from California are moving. They're moving to, and there's nothing wrong with people in California. I lived in LA. But if the ideology that they're bringing with them is the socialist views of, high taxes, state taxes, and we almost lost the election in the governor's house to someone. It was about less than 5%, and that could have been, a wake-up call for us, because all taxes, we would have had state taxes, and that's what's coming. So that's why it's important for us to understand, not just for us in 2020, but for the legacy that you'll be leaving for your children. So let's talk a little bit about Mr. Dow. I think we've said enough about Mr. Plaken.
I can't find them when I go on.
Right. If you go on Facebook, he's there. So I'm trying to find, he is running for, he's a Republican for Florida State Senate. And
You're on Facebook?
yeah. And so it's www.votelutherdow.com. So let's see what we have here, if I can find some things. I've always been curious. You know, as a child, as an adult, I feel like I was a born investigator. So I wish I could share my screen with you viewers. It says register to vote, attend events, get involved, donate today. So let's see what he stands for. He's a family man, and he's from upstate New York. He went into the Navy. So he's a serviceman. So thank you for your service, sir. I'm sure you'll be watching. We appreciate you. And all those who are listening who have served as well. He says he manages a group home for developmentally disabled adults. He helped breathe life into his hometown of Liberty, New York, as a committee member of the Main Street revitalization. Let's see, we read more about this gentleman. And I mean, he's got my interest. As soon as somebody served, this country in uniform, you get my interest and you get my attention. And so
It's hard for me because I work with the veterans for Donald Trump, and that's one thing that they look for. They look for, it's called We Who Serve, men that serve. And there's a lot of people right now that suffer from PTSD, physical disabilities, and we have to get back to our veterans. Our veterans are suffering so bad, and I'm in the telehealth profession as well. And that's something that we're trying to implement to the VA, that we need to help our veterans. And thank God, thank the Lord that we have a president who is doing so much for the VA right now and is giving a lot of money to Veterans Affairs to make sure that veterans have the proper care that they need, and to facilitate wonderful things for the officer spouses. That also, because they go through stuff too. It's really
absolutely.
Life is, out, serving our nation. They could be in Iraq, they could be in Afghanistan. They come back, sometimes they're never the same. They're very traumatized from what they
absolutely,
killing the enemy.
Absolutely.
God that we are able to, that we have VAs, that we have American Legions, that we have different places to help our veterans, and I deeply thank the president for that.
I agree with you. Well said, Alexandra. Many sound bites there to promote this video. So what it's interesting because we know that trauma lives on, and it's not just the event. And so when these people are come back home, if you haven't been to war, it's hard for you to understand, well, they're not there anymore, but the trauma still lives, not just in their psyche, but it lives in their body, because the trauma, your body holds the trauma. And I've had to have my own education in that process, because I have, I was in a car accident, and, and I couldn't understand why I was reacting to any bang, and that's what happens. Anything that sounds or triggers, in your consciousness, a similar pattern to the event itself, and it goes on unless it's handled. And what happens is the VA was so neglected that people were not getting the proper care. But back to Mr. Dow, we could go on about the VA. I'm passionate about that. My father served the military in Haiti, so he retired general. But let me tell you, they did not value his service. This country valued my father's service, not Haiti though. But that's another conversation for another day. So what have you found, Mr. Dow? Did you find his website?
Well, what I did, which is even a little bit more into delving into a candidate, is if you go to ballotpedia.com. So if you go to Ballotpedia, you can look up any candidate, and what they do is every candidate, Ballotpedia asks the candidate individual questions. It is like a get to know the candidate type of thing. So in a way, it makes the candidate a little bit more real to the voter.
Okay.
One thing that about Mr. Dow is he wasn't born in Florida. He's actually a native from upstate New York.
Yes.
So that's interesting. So it's really interesting that he was born in a very, I mean, upstate New York is actually more conservative than the rest of New York. So for him to go from New York and then to come, he has his real estate license in New York, and then to come down to Florida to assimilate to the life of Florida and change his politics down to the state of Florida, he kind of reminds me of my father a lot, because my father was born in the Washington, D.C. area with my mother. They moved down to Florida after they were first married. My father was a lifelong Democrat for a long time. He actually changed his party to Republican when he moved down to Florida.
Interesting.
So it's really interesting.
So I don't know about you, but I've only found like maybe a couple lines of Mr. Dow on ballotpedia.org.
You just have to keep scrolling down.
Oh, okay.
It says, like, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
So, so we have, this is going into the primary. Really, who can take out the Democrat? That's really the most important question to ask. But also, so there's two things here. Who's going to take out the Democrat in the general, and who's going to stand for true conservative values, and who has character? I mean, not just, in your personal life, how do you treat your family? How are you? I mean, it's not how you serve, just, because we know you're padding your resume. That's all good. Well, if you pad your resume, but how are your family? When you say you're a family man, do you really treat your family with respect? I mean, are you a role model to your children? If they were to interview your family, what would your children say about you? That's what I like about Trump, because every one of his children, they're out there standing with him. And, you got to see a candidate through the eyes of his family. How were his children raised? So, I'm looking down and I see, who are you, Luther? He says, a platform of service, and of course for me, they're words, but I still invite you to reach out to us, and, we can rearrange, for, an opportunity so that you can speak to the voters at some point in time, because, I think it's important. There's not much on you, Mr. Dow, on the internet. So how do we get to know you? How do I know? I mean, I don't know Mr. Plakin, even though he's the one in office. But why should I choose you over him? I don't see anything here.
Also, they just announced that the Democratic primary was canceled, which is interesting, because it's Tracy again is independent, so it's going to be Tracy Kagan as the Democratic nominee again. And I'll be honest, she didn't lose by much against Mr. Plakin. It was 49% in 2018 to Mr. Plakin's 51%. So it was a very tight election.
Right.
So, and she's running it again. So that means she's had, 2 years to, think about how she's going to strategize against Mr. Plakin and try to take the seat. So Mr. Plakin has to come with a different strategy this time.
Absolutely.
And hopefully to win even more if he wins the primary.
Absolutely. And I invite either one of you to come back so we can actually have a discussion. Either one who wins, I'm open to having you discuss what you have moving into the general. And, I'm looking at him. He seems like a great family man. But again, it's just a resume. When some people see me, are you open? Are you approachable? Are you accessible? Why don't we have more information on you on the internet? If you're running for office, we need more. We need more of you than just a Facebook page or just a website. We need more interviews. We need to know exactly how you feel in your own words. And it's not just something that your Q&A that is just typed up. So, again, I'm not giving you a hard time, gentlemen, but this was an opportunity for you to tell the voters who you really were, and you passed on the opportunity. I would love to know why. I got the reason, but this election is unprecedented. This is a time where you really need to get to know who is going to elect you and why they are going to elect you. And if you are not in sync with what their needs are, I think you should pass and let the person who really resonates with the voter, let us focus on the real candidate. So I don't know either one of you, and I don't have a preference either way. But all I know is that both of you said no. So Alexandra, I'm really passionate about what we've seen here tonight. And go ahead. I'll give you the last word. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I won't take the whole 5 minutes. I just say it does speak volume. And I've done Republican debates where the sitting state senator didn't show up. And it's very sad because, like to prove your point, the voters need to know who they're voting for. They need to look into the eye of the person they're going to have to vote for. People just try to run on their name. You can't do that anymore. First of all, it's not fair to the voter. Second of all, again, if it shows, if you're just about legislation, just passing a bill, then, maybe you do need to step aside. Maybe you aren't for the people. And again, the president of the United States is not going to vote someone in that is deep state, establishment. He wants a fighter. He wants someone that will fight for the American people. And again, this speaks volumes that the two gentlemen did not show up because, like I said, the incumbent only won very narrowly against the Democrat 2 years ago. So by him not showing up, it does speak volumes to the voters. So I hope he has a different a ground game, a different approach, and how he's going to get to the voters. But for him to think to himself that this was not important, these virtuals, these debates, these town halls are extremely important because the American voter is very confused right now and they need to hear it from their elected officials. They're so tired when their elected officials come every 2 years, once every 2 years. Hey, you remember me? You voted for me, vote for me again. No, they have to be there every single day, door knocking, phone banking, speaking to the people, food banking. That's what gets these people elected. That's what the American people want to see, that you care for them, that you will sit and talk to them. It's not all about you. Remember, I have to phrase this correctly, you work for the American people. The American people don't work for you.
Absolutely. The establishment's getting richer. It's interesting. We should have a way for us to cap how much money they make off of their special interests. And, this idea that these people have inside information on stock tips. And, I'm not saying this is happening in Seminole County, but these people look at this opportunity as, Donald Trump's probably they say this. I see this as a meme, but it's real. He's the only one who's gone into the office of the presidency and came out poorer than when he went in. And that applies to no other that I know of. Most politicians come in poor and they get richer. Nothing wrong with getting rich. I'm a capitalist. All I'm saying is, you got to balance the scale, and, you can't get rich at the expense of the people and not serve them. So, we can just say that this seat is definitely, it's an important one. District 29, Mr. Plakin has been serving since 2014. I don't know Mr. Dow, but I'd like to get to know you, sir. I would like you to come out from the shadows and help me understand who you are and why you need to win my vote, because I am a voter in this district. So, Alexandra, I am passionate, and we're going to continue this conversation. For everything that we announce is on the schedule. If the candidates do not show up, this will be a dialogue between the two of us. And now that I'm practiced at the first one, just one-on-one with Alexandra, I'm going to do next time. I'll have even more research. So next time we have the commissioner seat. This commissioner, I think it's 1 and 3 will be prepared next time. So stay tuned. So what do you have to say about that, Alexandra? This is going to keep me up at night Googling people and finding out some information. So unless you can bring the information directly by coming on the show, or I can do the research for you. Which one do you prefer?
Okay. Yeah, that's right. We're putting them right on the spot. We're challenging these commissioners to come on. We're challenging these people to come on. And like Sandra said, if you don't come on, public record, we can actually do the work that you're not doing, and we can educate the American voter on who to vote for. So, you can't come and defend yourself, but we will give the audience an objective, smart response to who they feel that they should vote for.
Absolutely. And I want to say thank you for those of you who joined us. We will educate, empower, and listen to you, the Seminole County voters, Tonight, we'll keep you in mind as we prepare for the next debate, which is taking place at 6:30 on July 23rd, 6:30 to 7:30. And please go to our Facebook page, which is Seminole County Debate and Seminole County GOP Primary Debates. Also, these shows will be archived on Sendor TV and also circulated on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I believe Parlay as well, which is a new platform. I'm happy for that. And that's it. So we thank you for participating, and thank you again for the support of Grassroots for America. Alexandra?
Thank you so much again. I'm Alexandra Levine. I'm the founder of Potomac Sports and Entertainment Network. That's a nationwide, worldwide network. Also the founder of YouAreNoIdiot.com. And the reason that you listen and the reason that you watch is you all know it.
Indeed. By Sandra Dorsey from Sendor TV. Have a wonderful day.
For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. That all changes starting right here and right now.
Thanks for joining us on Sendor TV. Please subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified when a new episode is uploaded. Also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook, and we definitely appreciate you being part of this community.